Alright guys, it's been a while since I've done this, so excuse my lack of practice, but... SHAH! Yes. Merric is here.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing you another Fire Emblem Heroes video. The timing on this one is impeccable, because yesterday I did cover my opinion piece on the Resplendent Arts and such. And we just get Merric right now, or rather in 14 days for those of you that have Fed Pass or whatever, half a month. So this is cool because I'm actually going to cover one of the characters I do actually like quite a bit, both historically on this channel and someone I did invest into quite a while back. So yeah, and honestly the stats do a lot for him more than just the art, which I am a fan of the art as well. So this will be more of a, yeah, I like this kind of Resplendent, he deserves it, it's awesome. So if you're expecting a good positive take on Merric, you're probably going to get one through this video, and my opinion on him and best places to use him. Plus, I don't know why people don't use him as much as they should, even before the Resplendent. That's basically what I'm going to talk about in this video. But yeah, so you can expect some sims, some builds, my take on the art, and if you haven't watched the previous video on that, go watch it as well. Before we begin, notice his color is blue. That means the thumbs up down there should also be blue, so smash it. Thank you. Let's do it. So, the art is, I honestly can't even tell from where that comes from. I mean, I could have just checked it out before I started, but without actually looking it up, I don't actually know whether that's Niffle or I guess it is Niffle. It probably is Niffle. I can't, because I don't know. Again, this is just I saw it. I had to like do it. So again, real take. I just like the style because it is a like it fits him. It's like seeing the baby Merric, but he put on his like you know, outfit as an adult, so he gets that like, you know, mage cap. It's kind of cool. Reminds me of Final Fantasy actually, like a black mage, white mage, and somewhat like that. So again, I think it fits him perfectly. I really like a lot of the style to it, so big fan of this art for sure. Maybe the face is a bit weird there, but overall, like the whole design of it is pretty good. That one's a bit better there. The art style on the actual cast, the spells is cool. And yeah, again, face is cool here. So maybe that was just one off. Again, all an opinion at the end of the day, right? So I like this, and it is definitely, if I was to put it on my list, this would be more of the good stuff. More of the good stuff. They have had some pretty good Resplendent art lately, so Merric definitely fits that bill. Now, before we begin into exactly where Merric stands as builds and what the Resplendent stats mean to him, I want to actually take a look at the other options which you may not be familiar with, guys, which is, first of all, the F2P options when it comes to 3-star Merric or 3-star, 4-star tomes. There's not actually that many. Look, there's literally like 6. So we haven't got that many. This would be something a Tempest Trials or GHB would definitely help with, and we haven't had that many since like Dancer Azura, really. And she has 140 BST, so that's obviously a bit outdated. But you'll notice that Merric is actually not good. Like, in terms of stats, his stats are very, not min-maxed, not really in the right place. He's not like, you know, as bulky as Bowie, for example. And obviously he doesn't have that great of an offensive stat spread. So he's kind of like lacking in anything, and that's not a good trait to have. However, the thing that I feel really does define Merric is going to be his preference weapons, which we'll talk about, weapons by the way, which we'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, honestly, when you look at like Nino, you know, okay, she's good at this. This is what her weapon helps her do. This is how I make her good. When we covered Resplendent Nino, you know, I was able to really tell you exactly why that was good. With Merric, it's a little bit more specific why he's good, but once you know why he's good, he's really good. And I'll show you again near the end when we do some sims. I've already done them, and I'll show you why he actually, it surprises me that he's not used as often. And I don't think as a character he's that unpopular either. Now, when you look at the actual like premium options of green tomes, there's a lot of them, and this is probably where like you don't see stuff like Merric and Nino as commonly, because there's so many of these and maybe people use this. In fact, just like baby Merric is a really good option to use, for example. Lewin with null follow-up, or Pent, or even just competing with like Thrasier, let's say on Anima Season if you already have Thrasier, or just Sonya's better offensive stat spread, more min-maxed in that regard. These are all things that would like, you know, kind of convince you that, hey, I should probably not use Merric on defense, for example, or just not even use him as a carry. But in reality, it's pretty good, guys. It's pretty good, and I'll show you why, right? So let's just jump into it. In case you don't know, this is Merric's 2 preference weapons that he has a choice of using, and his stat spread that's a build. That is definitely a build. His stat spread is actually definitely improved quite a bit with the Resplendent stats. And the reason it's really good is because if you choose the attack boon, it's a super boon, and it brings them to 32, 34, which is a bit better when you consider what you need to do with it. So that does help quite a bit. Going from like 30 to 32 helps quite a bit. I'll tell you why, again, once we get into the builds and the sims. So let's talk about the weapons first before we talk into the stat spread even further. So Excalibur is a slaying tome, and a slaying tome is extremely rare. You can't inherit it. Only a few characters have it. They're all pretty much preference tomes. The refine on this weapon is not that good. It's just whatever. Like within a magic or staff, you get 5 attack speed. That's okay, but I don't like it too much. So you can obviously opt for like a defense, speed, or even attack refine, maybe just to get a little bit extra out of that. And it also has the effect of against flying, which is again pretty solid because there are actually quite a few flyers when you consider both in arena and AR. So it does help him get even more kills and snipes that you just wouldn't otherwise expect. You gotta respect him just for having that effective damage. Now the other one here is Dark Excalibur, which not only gives you 10 extra damage on specials, but basically makes him very self-sufficient as a nuker. And this is a great tome to have again, that makes him compete with a ton of other green tomes as a legitimate threat. Back to the stat spread though. So Super Boon is really good on attack, and it's the one lacking feature that I think Merric has and should be worked on. So I think Super Boon on attack is almost always the right choice, and there isn't really much reason to go for the other ones. Now, actually having a higher defense than Res is again something more rare to mages, and the fact that he has high defense is good in this meta where most of the carries tend to be physical damage based. So he'll end up surviving quite a few retaliations. Again, all in the sims, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It is impressive. This is not a joke. Like between the extra stats he gets in HP and defense, and how his stat spread is more oriented towards now a little bit better because of the attack and speed and defense as opposed to res really helps him out. And I feel it actually gives him an edge over Sonya just because of availability also being a huge factor. So one of the like best builds you can do actually is something like this on defense. So he's easy to merge. The attack helps him quite a bit, especially when it comes to AoE scaling. So all you really need is one single infantry pulse to hit him here, and ideally you hide him in like the back of a defense team where he doesn't get like hit by pulse smoke, which has become a bit rare. And if you do combine it with high danger area threats like a dance trap or a restore trap or whatever, or just calves on the front line, it's going to be pretty difficult to pulse smoke him and to deny this blazing wind. But this blazing wind he's basically self-sufficient. Like he can be on a mixed team that just has a single infantry pulse and he is ready to go and completely kick some butt. This is without mythic blessings as well. We're not getting any sort of like Cyros or Duma, which I think also really synergize with him really well for color coverage. He does conflict with Thrasier, but I feel the best 3 Anima Mythics right now are going to be Cyros, Duma, and Mirabilis if you're going to choose like 3 of them. So he's going to really benefit from the attack bonus of like Cyros and Duma, which aren't even displayed here, and will help him scale better. The Dark Excalibur works super well for what you need Merric to do. It's also why Sonya is a solid defense option as well, but you know, lack of availability really hurts that in that respect. But the Resplendent with Super Boon helps Merric catch up, and his defense over res help him as well to survive a lot of retaliations. Now, another variant that's also fairly self-sufficient is the just base Excalibur build using a Slaying Tome and Times Pulse, so you can't even deny his special. So this is like a Moonbow, I always have Moonbow, or Ruptured Sky, depending on what you have, type of build. Use his decent, it's not great, but decent attack and speed stat combined with other boosters like Swift Sparrow, ARD attack speed, null follow-up. And because he's green, that's actually a preferable color when it comes to defense nukers. So he actually ends up being pretty well. And as you can see here, the dude has 40 defense with a defense refined Excalibur plus effective against flyers. So he actually doesn't die easily. Like for example, a Vector with Bonfire doesn't kill this. It does not kill this. Even Fallen Edelgard and such are going to struggle to kill this, and it makes him pretty difficult to snipe if he was like frontline, for example. So I do dig it, and again, it's surprising I don't see him as often as we could. Another thing you can definitely do with Merric is use him as a carry if you really wanted to, and a lot of his utility comes from the fact that he can have an effective flyer tome and slaying. So these kind of things really help him out quite a bit because it means those particular threats become more non-issues. He does suffer against AoE magical damage. Mystic Boost helps him against healers. And again, solo no follow-up, pretty solid build. Ruptured Sky I feel is also really good because we do see quite an onset of Beasts and Dragons on defense lately. I've been seeing quite a few Fallen Edelgards, so Ruptured Sky definitely better now if you can get your hands on it. Finally, the build we saw in the beginning was the Arena build. So again, this is solid because a pre-charge Ruptured Sky will help him basically one-shot a Edel, possibly one-shot a Fallen Edel. If it doesn't, that's okay, because usually you'll chunk her so hard, or you'll have somebody else hit and disable the like 40% damage reduction, and he'll easily get the kill. Nonetheless, just having a pre-charge Ruptured Sky at all is going to make a huge difference. This doesn't necessarily need like Mystic Boost or anything, but it does help him a bit because of his like lopsided kind of bulk. Just get him healing and such, just to make him tankier. But again, there's a lot of variations you can do with this and work with what you have. I do think Merric is a solid G-Dual infantry option if you do happen to have it. So yeah, let's actually jump into some simulations and really show you what this guy is capable of, and the extra stats do help him. They definitely help him. I think he's a solid investment, and honestly, I've been thinking of Merric myself whenever I kind of do defense design. And it's just, you know, to me that's exciting to see that he has that sort of potential. So let's jump into it, right? So what I've done here is I have given the like best case scenarios, or really good sort of scenarios for the user of those carries. And I'm going to cover, you guys can see my pointer here, I'm going to cover Fallen Edelgard, Brave Hector, and Brave Edelgard, who I definitely think are very common, but there's more than this. Obviously people use stuff like Brave Ike, and you might see Winter Altina. So maybe you'll see those from time to time, and he'll lose. I'm pretty sure he loses. Not to Ike, probably not to Brave Ike, but will definitely lose to red carries, such as Winter Altina, especially since she has high res. But if you use like the AoE build, he actually will get a fair amount of damage off. I wanted to focus on these three though, because you will see them a lot, and what exactly Merric does. So I've replicated the Resplendent stats with just 2 to all buffs here. That will pretty much make it similar. There is 2 extra HP that isn't shown here. He definitely gets up to a very nice attack stat, very nice HP stat. This is the Ruptured Sky build. This is the AoE build, which I showcased just a moment ago. So if we take a look at this, again, I've just kind of given like very best case or really good case scenarios for people using these carries. Plus 10, let's say Fallen Edelgard, no debuffs, which you could definitely expect, let's say through Dark Shrines, Bright Shrines, or Armored School or something like that. And, you know, if you go down here, Merric with the AoE build does a huge chunk of damage, which would probably end up killing Edelgard on any sort of follow-up. Most characters at this point could probably come in and sweep, or at least you'll chunk quite a few. And he does actually lose on the Ruptured Sky build because of her damage reduction. That 40% damage reduction really hurts, but if someone else does initiate before Merric, he will then do a great amount of damage. Now, you might already look at this and be like, well, that's not that great, but let me just reaffirm that there's no debuffs on this Edelgard, and she's plus 10. So this is like literally the best case scenario, and any lower merge Edelgards or those that are debuffed, or even the sequence is different where like someone else attacks before Merric, he's going to get the kill, and it is really satisfying to see that. Let's go into Brave Hector, which obviously he's a green beast blue kind of scenario. It's not going to be as comfortable for him. I've given 6 to all buffs for Brave Hector here because it's pretty easy to do, and he nullifies penalties anyways. So 4 mythics, you know, attack, defense, speed, the most common ones, which would be Altina, Naga, Plumeria, and Regan. Those are definitely most common. If people do use a Shero though, that does give some sort of advantage to them. But again, plus 10 Brave Hector, plus Res IV even. And again, Merric on the AoE build actually misses the kill, which is surprising to me. But again, plus Res IV and very like super good scenario for Hector. It leaves Hector at like 7 HP, right? Like actually at 1, like he just heals to 7 through Mystic Boost. So again, any like less merges here, not the Res IV, just even a debuff, because when it comes to AoE scaling, a debuff makes it, if you were to put just, even though he negates penalties, even if his visible res was down even further, the AoE from Merric would just kill kill Vector. So, you know, this is like very in favor of Merric. And this is the null follow-up Ruptured Sky build. Again, Merric just wins, and because he's able to take a hit, he takes a 60 damage bonfire hit back, but it doesn't matter. With null follow-up, he just gets the kill, and he has the bulk to survive that, which is super impressive. Like, you're not going to find many mages that can actually pull this off. So Resplendent helps quite a bit, both for the scaling and the bulk, which are used quite commonly. Finally, we have Brave Edelgard. So again, one of the highest stat units in the game, 6 to all stats, but not affected by any debuffs. And again, if you do end up hitting debuffs, Bright Shrine, Dark Shrine, Armor School, for example, those are all going to do quite a bit here. In fact, this doesn't even have all of the Mythic Blessings, so we'll put those in. And if we go down here, of course, again, he does a huge chunk, or survives, which is really impressive for a mage. Like, having that defense over res, for example, Sonya, dead. There's like, you'd have to stack defense for like Sonya to survive this sort of stuff. Sonya would definitely chunk, just like Merric does, but surviving usually means a dance follow-up or a Wings of Mercy and some chaos that will definitely give you that momentum shift to win. So if you look at these, you got to remember, these are like the worst case, best case people hitting you, and Merric is chunking or potentially winning depending on how you set up your debuffs as well. And this is the Anima version. You could probably use him on Dark as well, but I think he synergizes a bit better with the Anima mythics, because they tend to give attack. Whereas if you were on Dark, then you'd probably use like Brammy and Not, and I feel Not synergizes well with Cavaliers more than 2-move infantry. You can still do it, but again, just a preference here. So I wanted to give you guys that impression on what I feel is really good for Merric, both on the AoE build and the null follow-up Ruptured Sky or Moonbow builds, which both can definitely work. Yep, that's my take on Merric, folks. I am really, I like this one. I think the stats help quite a bit. There's not that many Resplendents where it's like, oh my god, they benefit from all these stats, so it's going to make a big difference. But for Merric, it definitely does make a difference, because he wants the bulk, he wants the offensive stats, he wants all of that, and the art is really cool. So yeah, that's my take on it. Thank you guys for watching as always. Sub if you haven't already, smash that like button, and if you like the content, Patreon's in the description. Keep it coming. Love you all. See you in the next one. Peace.
It's over.